Hello, I'm David Harper with the BBC News. The Ukrainian president has said the death and destruction wreaked by Russian troops in the town of Borodyanka is much more horrific than what happened in Bucha. Volodymyr Zelensky has said even more civilians were murdered there. Charlotte Gallagher reports.
The horrors inflicted on the residents of Bucha shocked the world. Now attention is turning to nearby Borodyanka, which was heavily shelled when Russia tried to advance on the capital, Kyiv. The country's prosecutor general says it's impossible to predict how many people have been killed there, adding that Russia used cluster bombs and rocket launchers. A local priest says he saw snipers killing civilians. President Biden has called the images coming out of Ukraine an outrage to our humanity, adding that Russia's lies were no match for undeniable evidence.
The BBC has found evidence that Russian forces held more than 100 Ukrainians captive in the basement of a school for a month near the northern city of Chernihiv. Conditions were so cramped that some captives had to sleep standing up. 12 people died. Their bodies were left for days inside the cellar. The BBC's Yogita Lamai went there.
I'm in the basement right now. It's a cold, damp room. There's a strong smell of disease, of decay in the air. It's littered with mattresses and chairs and tables and benches just put together. I've been told that there wasn't even space for each person to lie down on the floor here. People weren't allowed to leave this room, not even to go to the toilet. Every time a person died here, they would carry the corpse to one corner of the room. And so essentially, for hours, they were living with corpses by their side.
The European Union has decided to ban Russian coal, trade in which the EU says is worth more than €4 billion a year. France said the EU would also ban exports to Russia, particularly of high-tech items, and close its ports to Russian vessels. In Washington, both houses of Congress have voted to end normal trade relations with Russia and its ally Belarus. Here's the US Deputy Justice Secretary, Wally Adeyemo.
We're committed to continuing to go after things that are critical to their supply chains, things that are important to building their tanks, to supplying the missiles that they need, making sure that they have fewer resources to not only fight this war on Ukraine that they have started, but also to project power into the future.
Canada is to spend more than $6 billion on its military over the next 5 years. This includes further help for Ukraine and hundreds of troops for a NATO mission in Latvia. The money will also be used to boost joint defence with the United States in the Arctic. The budget increase will still fall short, though, of the NATO spending target of 2% of GDP. You're listening to the latest world news from the BBC. Israeli medical services say 2 people have been killed and 8 others wounded in a shooting attack in the centre of Tel Aviv. The attack caused panic in a busy area thronged with bars. Israel has been facing the deadliest wave of attacks in years, which had already prompted the government to toughen security measures. Millions of women around the world are potentially spending years suffering with undiagnosed and untreated post-traumatic stress after experiencing a miscarriage. The International Society of Ultrasound in Obstetrics and Gynecology says most women are falling through the net in terms of support after pregnancy loss and are calling for further research on the impact of miscarriage. Researchers in Britain have rejuvenated the skin cells of a 53-year-old woman, making them equivalent to those of a 23-year-old. The scientists say that they believe they might be able to do the same thing with other tissues in the body. Our science correspondent Palab Ghosh reports.
The technology is based on a technique to turn adult skin cells into embryonic stem cells by soaking them in chemicals for 50 days. By cutting the process short to just 12 days, the team found that they could make the cells younger rather than taking them all the way back to an embryo-like state. It's thought that the technique could be used to heal wounds or burns more quickly in elderly patients by adding rejuvenated cells to the injured area. But there's a long way to go before such treatments could be available because the chemicals used in the process are known to cause cancers.
Palab Ghosh reporting. Physicists carrying out experiments at a laboratory in the American state of Illinois say they have found an unexpected value for the mass of a subatomic particle. The team concluded that the particle, known as a W boson, was more massive than predicted by the theories. The discovery could lead to the development of a new, more complete theory of how the universe works. And that's the latest BBC News.